Hello, everyone, and welcome to UGASports, Georgia Recruiting Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilbert here with Keanu Charles Reeves, as he is now known on his Twitter handle. Trent has had an unbelievable experience with some Twitter hacking going on, and if you want some good comedy, you can just kind of head over to that account. But Trent, fill us in on what's the latest with your battle with Twitter right now.
Yeah, I don't. You know, they wanted proof of. I guess the email behind the account, but of course the email has been changed by the hacker, so that email is not going to match up. So, still battling. Just continue to go to my Twitter and mark it as hacked or report it and mark it as hacked because Twitter's not seeming to want to do anything about it right now, and so we're going to continue to fight the battle.
Absolutely, and we got another one joining us here, Mr. Jed May. So, Jed, say hello to Keanu.
What's up, Keanu? Loved you in Speed, man.
I didn't know I was in it, but good.
Absolutely. So we are, here once again covering Georgia football recruiting live on the UGASports YouTube channel. If you don't already do so, do us a favor and subscribe to the channel today. We really appreciate that. The amount of subscribers that we've gathered and gained, guys, over the last 2-3 months has been unbelievable, and that's in large part just support and thank you to you guys. So as always, we'll be on here answering questions from the UGASports Vault members, as we always do. Scuffletown Dog right off the bat wanted to ask the question of who does Georgia finish with in the class of 2022. So I want to give a disclaimer and tell Scuffletown Dog that one's going to be saved for the end, my man. I know you always watch, so I know you were the first one to answer on the board topic today, but you're going to be the last one answered here on the show.
Georgia's closing on John Wick pretty well. So.
That's it. That's it. No doubt. And according to Trent's account, I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the world out there. But, we're really, really looking forward to this show, looking forward to Wednesday as Georgia does finish up the class of 2022 and maybe even a few surprises in there. We'll talk about that down the line here. But, Jed, you just, the reason you joined us a little bit late, you were talking with a priority class of 2023 prospect just now.
Yeah, Raul Aguirre, man, that kid loves to talk, and I love talking to him. He's a good kid. He's a really, really good-looking linebacker in the class of 2023. He plays at Whitewater High School, and, he was telling me, spoiler alert for my story coming tomorrow, but he said while he was in Athens, Glenn Schumann had him and a couple other linebackers in a room saying, there was videos of Poy Walker playing different positions and Nakobe Dean lining up all over the place. He's like, you want to know why these guys are getting drafted? Is because scouts come to us and say, they ask if they could play all over the place. And Schumann likes that in Earl Aguirre. We saw him at the 5-star challenge or underclassmen challenge, whatever, last summer. And he was covering, running backs out of the backfield really well. So that's something Glenn Schumann likes in his game. And, it's the reason he's one of the top inside linebacker prospects for Georgia in the class of 2023. So look for that story tomorrow.
Absolutely. And another inside linebacker prospect in the class of 2023 that was there and kind of was probably in that meeting with Raul Aguirre and Glenn Schumann was Quay Rusaw from Montgomery, Alabama. And, he's another guy that, man, he can just go sideline to sideline in a hurry and really plays physical. Kirby Smart went out and saw him play basketball last week. So as Trent's got the Hawks in the background behind him over there, Kirby like to go see a little bit of round ball, see Quay Rusaw, and then also James Smith. I'm not sure if James Smith is playing basketball or not, but Trent, if James Smith is playing basketball, you talk about like the round mound or rebound. He's giving Charles Barkley a run for his money over there. That's a big 3 technique or nose guard in there, mixing it up in the post if he's playing for Carver.
Yeah, that's about like Jalen Walker playing basketball. Jalen can get up and dunk though, so I'd be interested to see if he can get up just like Jalen does.
Yeah, I've watching James Smith, I wouldn't put anything past him, and that is a athletic son of a gun. So the class of 2023 is really cranking up. They had some major targets, not only for that class. Andrew Paul was there on an official visit in the class of 2022. We'll talk a lot about him in this show. And then also they had guys sprinkling throughout, Jed, all the way down from, 2024 and even some 2025 guys.
Yeah, and it's funny, last week I went and visited Noah Dixon at Troup County High School. One of the guys there was like, "Man, aren't these kids a little young to be being interviewed?" And I was like, "Not when the coaches are interviewing these or offering these kids and visiting them and having them on campus and stuff." And that's the nature of the game. I mean, Blaine, you've written at least I think 2 stories on Julian Lewis this year, who's
not even in high school yet.
kid. Yeah, I mean, Justice Terry and Manchester, he went viral for looking like a Greek god, and that kid's a freshman or coming off his freshman season in high school. So that's the nature of the game now. And recruiting, like I said, the 2022 class will be officially wrapped up here soon. But long before now, the coaches have started turning their attention to 23 and 24, especially Georgia, who, I mean, we've mentioned on here before, they did a lot of their, heavy lifting and signing, during the early signing period.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to get my son some looks. He's a 4th grader. Anybody interview him?
We know that he can take a elbow pretty good in basketball and just keep on going. I mean, that picture you sent to the group with the knot over the eye, man, he's tough. He's in there amongst the trees playing basketball, so he's got the toughness factor for sure. But Trent, anything before we kind of get going into questions and start talking about some of these guys? Anything that's just kind of been sticking out lately in recruiting? Anything that you've kind of been tracking here before we get going?
No, I think going into signing day is pretty. It's not going to be a big day for Georgia. I think it's coming down to I think Darris Smith's good. I think Dylan Bell's going to sign, and then you're going to look at some guys like Christian Miller. I think Christian Miller will be the big guy that you're watching on Wednesday, and then you have Andrew Paul, the running back that just visited. Of course, it looks like Jordan James could be headed elsewhere, and Andrew Paul might fill in that spot. And then who else are we looking at? The linebacker from Fitzgerald.
And, EJ Lightsey. And I put out an article today that another reason to be a member of the UGA Sports Vault, if you were on there, of the UGAsports.com, if you're a member, we had a story on there today, what to expect on National Signing Day for the Georgia Bulldogs. So all that content is out there as well. But before we get into the questions, one guy that you have seen in person, Trent, and then Jed and I have both watched a lot of. Jed, you've actually seen him in person as well, Darris Smith. I want to talk a little bit about Darris Smith because I feel he's a 4-star prospect, but I feel he's one of the most underappreciated prospects and maybe with one of the higher upsides in this entire recruiting class for the University of Georgia.
Yeah, I do think looking at his ranking after watching him play, I do think just from where he is right now as a player, I do think that's probably fairly accurate. Now, as far as upside in his body, in his frame, it's just Lorenzo Carter type player. He is he's very quick. He's got a quick get off. He can get to the passer. He's built physically enough to go up against the run at that outside linebacker position. I like what I saw. I do think he's very raw. He plays too high at times, but athleticism and his upside is just out of the building. I mean, I think whoever's coaching him, an outside linebacker, when he gets to Athens, I think they're going to have a field day with that kid because, like I said, it's just untapped potential. And he's going to be one to watch. Probably not the first year, but down the line, he's definitely one to watch. I think he's going to be one of those guys that could, be one of those big sack guys that in the future.
Jed, you when you saw him, I believe he was forcing some turnovers with that length that he had. I mean, that's a big factor in pass rush now. Having those long arms, being able to get around the tackles, and everybody's attacking that ball. And I think you even had a film of Darris being able to do that while you were there watching him.
Yeah, I didn't come prepared with my tweets handy, so I take the blame for that. But yeah, he stripped Tipp County's quarterback with about 4 minutes or so left that iced that game for Appling County basically. And I beat the drum for this kid. It seems like every week we're on the show when someone asks about a 2022 class. But I'm telling you, it's like Trent said, when he gets in Athens and he has a summer and a fall and next spring to really grow and develop and be coached by whoever this outside linebackers coaches, he could be just an absolute freak. And another thing that we haven't talked about a whole lot, but Kirby likes those guys. I remember I mean, there's been guys with that kind of frame that Kirby said, hey, we've tried him out at star. Like, Adam Anderson has been tried out at star sometimes. I think Darris Smith could be that guy that could possibly get a look at some part-time star role. I mean, he's got that kind of, frame and athleticism. So he's a guy, like Trent said, the coaches are going to have a field day with this kid when he gets to Athens, because you can't teach, some of the things he's got.
And I believe he said that when I asked him after the game that what he measured at was 6'6.5". I believe that's what he told me. So, yeah, he's long, he's athletic, and it's going to be interesting.
A little lean right now too, admittedly. I mean, and kind of reminds you in this last recruiting class for Georgia, Marlon Dean, right? That's a guy that is playing that outside linebacker, defensive end, that position right now. Trent, that I know they would like to put a little bit more weight on and see that out of him. But athletic guys that have high ceilings, I think Darris Smith is right there in that same breath. Kind of in that same mold with some of those guys that they've had in the past that come in a little bit lean, but hey, you know what? Then they get to eat all they want to eat, and then get on the nutrition plan and stuff like that. And it's amazing what happens to guys' bodies between the age of 18 and 21 there. When they stay at a Power 5 program.
Yeah, he's 225 or somewhere around that area, but the way he's built and the way, his shoulders and everything, I think he could get to 245 and still be athletic and still like he is now and play that jack. I mean, I think he have potential to just put 20 pounds on and just be a freak. It'll be fun to watch because I think he's one of those guys, like Jed said, he could be, a 5.9 4-star right now, but by the time he leaves, he could be one of those guys that you're looking at like, dang, we knew his potential was there, but we didn't know he was going to play like this. So,
no doubt. Now, lastly, but before we start getting into questions and things like that, you've seen here recently guys like Kristen Miller, right, who have kind of gone quiet a little bit, and that's a little unusual for Kristen, right? I mean, he's a guy who's a high-powered personality. You always hear a lot from him, but last I think everybody's really heard publicly from Kristen Miller was coming off his visit from Florida A&M, where he talked about the culture being different and stuff like that at HBCU. Then of course these other Power 5 schools that he's visited. What do you think off the bat that quietness from Kristen Miller, maybe a good sign for Georgia or something brewing that maybe nobody expects?
Me personally, I think it's I think he's trying to, I guess, he's announcing on signing day, all kids want their moment. And I think he's going to, allow himself, go quiet, not give anything away of what he's, I guess, planning on doing and come in and announce his decision on Wednesday. But I still like Georgia's chances as of today.
Absolutely. So without further ado, we've got a bunch of questions to get to, so we might as well go ahead and hit those. And remember, Scuffletown Dog, if you're watching, we know that you answered, you put in your comment first, but you're going to have to be last because of the nature of the question, my man. But let's go ahead and get these going, Jed, if you don't mind reading off that first one.
Yeah, John Adams, 88, Overton as an LT into 2022 class, UGA or Texas A&M?
We can all kind of go round table here and say what we've heard. Admittedly, I had heard during the early signing period, I had two sources reach out to me and say, hey, Georgia may not be done yet. And this was the second day where there one more day remaining, I believe, in the early signing period. They said LT Overton could be reclassifying and this could be, going down rather quickly. So I put that out there. It was a reputable source. Checked around, said, hey, Georgia may not be done. There could be a surprise in the class. Even at that point, things kind of died off from then, Jed. And then now it seems like there's smoke picking back up around the situation.
Yeah, we've been going this scenario has been going around Blaine, like you said, for at least a couple months now. And it came up again the other day. And, I checked with a couple of my sources over at Milton, and they said basically, that's been the rumor, but we haven't heard that from LT. We haven't heard it. I think that my source says from his mother. So there's plenty of smoke out there. We'll see. I don't know exactly how all this, and y'all would know better than I would how it would go down with signing on Wednesday and how quickly you have to reclassify and all that kind of stuff. But at the moment, he's still in the 2023 class. What I've heard is it's nothing is imminent or anything. So we'll see.
Trent, when it comes to reclassifying, I know the whole deal that went down with Tony Grimes. When he was coming out, it was down to kind of Georgia, North Carolina, stuff like that. But that happened real quickly. Like I'm talking about in a matter of, it seemed like 24 hours. It was just all of a sudden, boom, it was out. It could have been happening, and then it was there. How quickly? I mean, I don't know if we have a frame of reference on many other people who've done it, but this could happen very quickly if he does decide to pull the trigger, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm guessing he has the credits to go ahead and do it. So, I mean, if he does indeed have the credits and everything's lined up and he's been cleared by the clearinghouse and all that stuff, then, this could happen overnight. But this is also a thing that that might not happen on Wednesday. So I think fans need to prepare themselves that this rumor or whatever it is, the smoke that's going around, it could go into the spring. This is not he doesn't have to sign Wednesday if he does reclassify. This could go into even May, June, and all the way up to the time where he could enroll at Georgia, and he could go up then. So I don't know when it's going to happen. I haven't heard if it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but it's not a thing that has to happen Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think when Tony Grimes did his, it was like going into fall camp for North Carolina. It was in August almost. I mean, it was late, so that could happen very quickly if it does indeed and turn out to be the case. Now, it can be debated whether or not it should happen, or who would it benefit the most and things like that. I think the question behind it was Georgia or Texas A&M. I would personally say that Georgia would be a favorite if that were to occur. I just think being an in-state guy coming out early, things like that, I think Georgia would be a favorite over Texas A&M. But there's some strong persuasion, of course, going out in oil country these days. So who knows how all that could go down. John Adams 88 has a follow-up question. Is this the best recruiting staff ever assembled in 2022? No, he's not talking about UGASports. He's talking about the Georgia coaching staff. I'm a little biased on the UGASports deal right there, but no, Trent, when it comes to bringing Brian McClendon back in, you've got Muschamp doing his thing, Glenn Schumann with the track record that he's able to have built up during his time at Georgia. Trey Scott has really come into his own. Can you think of a better time, while you've been covering Georgia football recruiting, where there's been a top to bottom better recruiting staff?
No, but it all starts with Kirby Smart, and as long as Kirby Smart's in town, I think you're going to have an elite recruiting staff, no matter who's on staff. But as far as this staff, with its ties to the state and with its ties to the Southeast, there probably hasn't been a overall staff because Hankton has his ties, but it was a lot of Louisiana, and that there's some ties. But I think as far as ties to the state and ties to even going down into Florida, I think this is probably the best staff they've had now from a recruiting standpoint. But a lot of that, we'll see, because with the NIL going on now. But just as far as overall recruiters, I would say Georgia's pretty wealthy on recruiters right now.
No doubt. And I think like you made a good point. It is different in different areas, right? Like I think the Georgia's strength inside the state, and that's a good thing, because I think the high school strength across the board in the state of Georgia, I think there's more prospects coming out of Georgia now than ever before, but I don't think they're as, deadly right now in South Florida as maybe they were when James Coley was on staff, because James Coley just had been around there forever and had all those kind of connections and things like that. So it's a give and take in certain areas. I mean, Jed, but one thing that a lot of players, prospects are repeating to me, and kind of when I say what sticks out to you, they're saying, man, all these guys played at Georgia, and they have this like love for the University of Georgia because they were Georgia Bulldogs themselves. Are you getting a lot of that in your interviews as well?
Yeah, I mean, you look at let's look at the defensive coaching staff. Kirby Smart, SEC safety. Jamila Dye, SEC safety. Or excuse me, Will Muschamp, SEC safety. Those guys, there's so much experience all over the place. And you talk to these guys, hey, how much does that mean? It's like they know how to play the position. They know how to put you in the best positions to succeed. They know, the struggles of being a student athlete. So that matters a ton to these guys. And then you look at, just some of the, Del McGee is
now Mike Bobo is there. Who
played yeah, he's not even. And the thing is, it goes so far down the staff. Tamarian Parker from Alabama has a really strong relationship with Robert Muschamp. Way down on the list of analysts or whatever his official title is. So every person on this staff, whether you're quality control, defensive coordinator, whatever, they bring something to the table in recruiting, and that's it's paying off with the great classes they brought in to Kirby Smart.
To me, what's interesting is you got the Mike Bobo now, and you're allowed to have 10 guys or however many guys out on the trail. I think it's 10, and so if there's ever a point where you have to pull somebody back, you saw Buster Faulkner out on the trail, and I guess this past January because they were missing a coach. So you can always put Bobo out on the trail and make that staff even better from a recruiting standpoint when, you might be a coach down, which Georgia's still a coach down, a defensive coach down. So, they've built this for success. He's built it just like Saban does. He's got guys ready to go behind guys. And it's, it is working out. They've been in situations where they've been guys down and other guys have stepped up and filled those voids, and Georgia hasn't missed a beat, and that's the way it's going to remain with Kirby at the top.
And on that note, I did want to note, put out there that Scott Cochran is he's returning to this staff. Like that is going to happen, and he, even this past couple of weekends, him being back around the program and things like that, I've had 2 or 3 prospects tell me that the most, energetic and the guy that stood out the most to them during their visit was Scott Cochran. And, he's got those deep connections to a lot of those guys in the state of Alabama. Trent, Jed, Georgia is going after elite talent in the state of Alabama in the class of 2023. When you talk about Tamarian, Parker, you talk about Mitchell, first name, Tony Mitchell coming out of a corner out of Alabama, Quay Russaw, James Smith out of Montgomery, Alabama. There's a lot of connections there with Scott Cochran. And, I know he had some personal stuff he had to work through, but apparently he's got that under control and now back with the program. So he's paying dividends for Georgia recruiting wise as of right now. So here we go. Next question there, Jed.
From Jay Doggy, biggest concern for the 2022 season along the defensive front, interior defensive line replacements, winning at the line of scrimmage, or exterior pass rush from our defensive ends and outside linebackers?
Well, I think that, exterior pass rush kind of got shored up a little bit there, Trent, when immediately when Nolan Smith and Robert Beal decided to come back. Robert Beal led the team in sacks, I believe, over there this year, 8.5 sacks. So, that's a big, I guess not addition, but a lack of attrition, right? When you got those two coming back. So I think it would be more along, how do those guys in the middle develop when you're talking about does Zion Logue take the next step, to be a more Devontae Wyatt type player at a 3 technique, things like that. Jalen Carter being a more, every rep type guy now when he comes in there, but that's just me.
Yeah, and I think you got guys up front, and the one spot that I'm looking at that's a kind of a concern is the, more of the 5-tech defensive end, that Herring played, that Trayvon Walker played. I think Georgia's a little thin at that spot, and it'd be interesting to see, who kind of stands up, because I think Georgia has some good guys up front: Stackhouse, Warren Brinson, Logue, like you mentioned, and then of course you got Jalen Carter, and then you got Ingram Dawkins and those guys coming in. So I think Georgia has a ton of depth in the middle. I think I'm looking more at that defensive end, because Georgia's in a lot of nickel. They don't have to necessarily use a nose tackle a ton, just the way they use. Jalen Carter will be at that spot a good amount, but especially when they're in nickel. So I'm looking at who's going to step up next to Jalen Carter, especially in the nickel, to kind of get some push there on the interior defense line, because I think Georgia's going to, with Smith and Robert Beal coming back, I think the edge with the guys coming back, I think that will be shored up. I'm looking at that, more of the interior.
Does anybody remember? I can't remember off the top of my head what Michael Williams weighed in at the All American. I think he was upwards of 258 pounds. I mean, I think he was close to that 260 range. He's a guy that, he's so versatile with his athleticism. Trent, could he end up filling that type of role, going on, playing some 5 and playing some outside edge as well?
I do think so, but he's a guy that you really want rushing the passer. I'm not sure you want him on the interior, especially in the nickel.
Well, I'm not saying interior, but I'm talking about like outside. If he's a 5 technique, he's more of a edge controller on the run.
He's more of an edge, but there's a lot of times when Trayvon Walker slid in on the nickel and played the inside. I don't necessarily see that with Michael just yet. I think he would still be on the edge in the nickel, but he is a guy that can, I think, can play 5 tech and be very successful at it. I just don't see him sliding in on the nickel just yet.
Absolutely. So here we go. We've got NC-UGA. As of today, how many players are on scholarship? Jed, I think the last time I'd heard this number, they were around 91 was the number they were at, but there's been so much attrition going in and out. I don't think it matters if I'm correct at this point right now, because Trent, as long as you've got guys like Robert Beal and even Nolan Smith and Stetson Bennett and all these guys who have that COVID year under their belt, you can be over the number as long as there's still guys from that COVID year. So teams are going to be allowed to be over the number for another year or so, is my understanding.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into the rules, but I think Georgia was somewhere around the 90 mark. And I think that'll get, it's going to get closer down to 85, but you're also looking at guys that are like Dan Jackson, still not on scholarship. I talked to his dad the other day, and he's hoping that he's on scholarship, next year, but that's without those guys. And then, how many does Georgia add on Wednesday? We'll take into account to that scholarship number as well. But Kirby's always going to make the numbers work, so that is not a big deal, But
whether you think the numbers are going to work or not, we don't know. We don't know. Some people may come there and they've technically signed, but they're not actually on scholarship until maybe even a year afterwards. So those numbers, work out quite mysteriously. But like you said, Kirby Smart does have a way of massaging those numbers for sure, making sure that it works out for the University of Georgia. There's who knows? There's blue shirts involved in this kind of stuff. We'll see how it all ends up and shakes out, but Georgia still has some time, and I think there's going to be some more. Jed, I think there'll be some more attrition after the spring for sure. So it may be still yet another month or so, but Georgia's there's going to be some more guys leave the program.
Definitely, and more guys will come in to replace those guys, and there's the +7 thing with guys. There's so many. It's like Trent said, there's so much fluidity with the COVID years and the transfers and all that kind of stuff going on now. Bottom line is, come September 3rd, Kirby Smart's gonna have the numbers figured out in one way or another. So it's going to keep track of and everything, but it's going to get worked out one way or another. And
we all know the NCAA is pretty much toothless now anyway, so does it even really matter? So we'll get to that as well later on down the line. ZXBY 140. Who in this class is most likely to see immediate playing time help the team most in pass rush situations? In my opinion, I think Marvin Jones and Michael Williams both have a real chance to play early.
Yeah, I think those two, and I think Bear Alexander has a chance to come in and play early. Just looking at, as far as what you're losing and guys that are there, I think Bear has a chance. But the first two you mentioned, Michael and Marvin, they definitely have a chance to come in just because of lack of depth at that position. You saw like Chaz Chambliss came in and had a lot of playing time this year as a freshman just because it was – yes, he had a good year. He's very good, but there's a lot of, there was depth concerns at that outside linebacker position, and he came in and filled that void nicely. So I think you're going to see those two come in and contribute early.
And Jed, I know you've seen, and not necessarily in the pass rush situations, but playing early. I know you've seen a lot of Malachi Starks, and Malachi Starks is as athletic as anybody, I believe, overall in the class, maybe other than Travis Hunter in the class of 2022. That young man is going to be hard to keep off the field, in my opinion.
And and he's so versatile. And I'm interested to see whether and obviously all these guys cross train, so it really doesn't matter, but whether they try him out more at a star or at safety, when spring practice comes, because I think he has the ability to play both. It just could come down to a thing. It's kind of like you mentioned with Robert Beal and Nolan Smith. Safety is short up a little bit with Chris Smith saying he's coming back, so that might lead to him playing more star. But either way, he's a guy that he's so athletic, he's so skilled that he's going to make a push for playing time in the secondary, especially maybe at star or at safety, either one, or maybe both. So, or definitely maybe even on special teams as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be a guy that really steps up. What we got, Jed?
From Elko Dog, player comparison to Andrew Paul.
So Andrew Paul, the running back from Dallas, Texas, Parish Episcopal School, finished with, the last 3 games of his high school career, over 1,100 yards and 16 touchdowns in 3 games in 6A, the highest classification in Texas. That's legendary type stuff right there. Really, I got to thinking about this. One guy that he's probably an inch, maybe 2 inches shorter than, but same in my opinion, body type and running style, how they carry themselves. He reminds me a lot of Kendall Milton coming out of high school. And that's high praise because Kendall Milton was a 5-star. I know Andrew Paul ranked right now as a 3-star by Rivals, but I feel like he's a young man with a lot of upside. He's got a kind of a little bit of a thicker type frame, but he's got really high knee lift coming out of those cuts. And really, when he kicks it into a gear in the open field, he's quite impressive. I mean, is there anybody that sticks out to you guys about who Andrew Paul may remind you of how he plays?
I mean, not I haven't really, I've watched his film but I haven't really dove deep in his film, but I'm not sure he has the overall top end speed of Milton, but I do see a lot of similarities coming, to what you're talking about, the high knees, the cuts and the stuff like that. There's a lot of similarities in that game. And I just think he's another, I think Georgia would have liked to have another guy more like James Cook in this class, but you can't pass up on a guy like Paul this late, and the way he exploded in the playoffs and the way he's kind of lit up the recruiting boards. And there was a lot of guys a lot of teams, I say, that came after him late. And if Georgia's able to secure that signature on Wednesday, that'd be a big get. Yeah,
Notre Dame, Michigan, Clemson all came after him here late to try to get Andrew Paul. And then, I mean, obviously he hasn't signed anywhere, so they still could yet. Missouri also was in there, and people, laugh a lot of time with Missouri and stuff like that. But when you look at the running back history there at Missouri, that they got a lot to offer. Roundtree and then Tyler Beatty this last year. I mean, they feature the running back, so that's a strong recruitment there as well. Of course, Colorado was someone, and Georgia's already broke Colorado's hearts in this recruiting class alone, taking CJ Madden from Cedar Grove. He was a Colorado commit, and as soon as Georgia showed the interest, he decided to promptly decommit, and now is signed with the Georgia Bulldogs. So yeah, I think Andrew Paul, like I said, just certain things about his game. When I watch him, he reminds me of the similar running style as Kendall Milton. Like you said, I think Kendall Milton had some more of those 5-star-esque traits, but very similar type runners in my opinion, how they go about things. Jed, here's our next one on old BMac there.
From Riser, how, if at all, does Brian McClendon's return help close out 2022? Was he able to be in Athens for any of the visits with 2023 guys over the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know. Trent, you may know, better than I would if he was in town or not yet. I know that he's very, obviously comfortable with the Athens area. Has been there for a long time in different stints and things. But BMac, I think, I don't know that it'll help much in the class of 2022, but I think it's already making big impacts in the class of 2023.
Yeah, I don't think he was there. He was definitely wasn't there Saturday because I'm pretty sure that he landed a commitment for Miami on Saturday morning. So a lot of stuff changed quickly.
His commitments to the last.
Yeah, so he landed a 23 wide receiver Saturday morning at Miami, and then he's a new wide receiver coach at Georgia on Sunday. So I don't think he was there over the weekend, but and I don't think he'll have a huge impact in this class. But I do think he a lot of those South Florida guys became familiar with him over the past month or so since he's been at Miami, and I do think he'll play a big impact, with the 23 class, but I don't see much in the 22 class.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Ennis already,
Mm-hmm.
the mind blow emoji, saying, wait, but Brian McClendon, BMac went to Georgia, and that's the number one receiver in the country right there. That Georgia's been, Dale McGee and Todd Hartley. Those guys have been recruiting him since he was an 8th grader. When he was a teammate of Kenny McIntosh at University High School down there in Fort Lauderdale. Now he's at American Heritage. So, of course, McClendon had already kind of had inroads there. So, there's definitely some major developments.
Miami has 2 commits in the 23 class, and they're both wide receivers. So
they're about to be down to 0 commits.
Andy Jean and Lamar Seymour. But yeah, those are both, and they're both from Miami. So McClendon was already doing work down there, and I see that. I don't see that changing now that he's at Georgia.
Yeah, Jed, Raymond Cottrell was for sure excited about it when I spoke to him, and I know you'd seen some stuff from Santana Fleming and some other guys so far.
Yeah, Santana Fleming. You said he's a real good coach and a real dude, is what he said. And Santana Fleming. Also at American Heritage, Brandon Ennis, like you mentioned, KJ Bolden. Ben got some comments from him. And then another guy Georgia's offering a couple of weeks ago, Kyler Casper from out in Arizona, I believe. I spoke with him today, and I was like, what do you think of the hire? And he said, Brian McClendon recruited me at Oregon. That's the guy. That was his relationship there. So, there's guys all over the country that know Brian McClendon, that respect the job he's done at a receivers coach. And how often, Blaine and Trent, have we gotten questions on the show over the past 4 months? What's wrong with Georgia's receiver recruiting? How can Georgia's receivers recruiting pick up? Brian McClendon's a pretty good start when you bring in a guy with his reputation and knowledge and ties everywhere. So this 23 cycle, giving him a full year to work on these guys, it's going to be really interesting to see what Georgia's receiver class looks like in 23 compared to the past couple of years.
And I wouldn't even put it. I wouldn't even put it past things to happen in terms of the transfer market between now and the start of the season, right? So that could help as well. So in terms of, let's see, who we got next? We got Fieldsy 0624. He says, similar to JD 99 and Jordan Davis, development and impact, which 2022 commit 3-star under, which Jordan Davis was actually a 4-star, will be a fan. Will we as a fan base be singing the praises of a year or two from now? So basically, even though Jordan Davis was ultimately listed to rise by a 4-star, he was a more under recruited guy to kind of start off with and to go through a majority of his recruitment. Who do you guys think? And I know we've kind of touched on this in the past. Who do you think is a unheralded prospect that'll end up, being more of a fan favorite type when it comes to this class of 2022 down the line?
I think if you're trying to draw similarities to JD, I think you have to look at Sean Washington, just from the pure how quiet they were. JD didn't talk much, and then he turns into just a celebrity in Athens. So I could see Sean coming in, making an impact on that defensive line, and of course guys like CJ Madden, They're Dylan Bell. I mean, the list is kind of endless with the way. I guess you could list Gunnar Stockton in that category now since he dropped like a rocket in the rankings. So
a rocket that lost its engine, right? I mean,
he didn't quite drop the 3-star, but 5.8, 4 stars. So
yeah. Now, when you were speaking of Sean Washington, when you were talking about people, I was a little bit hesitant to, say it, but people that could play a head up 4 or a 5 technique in a nickel when it comes to a run, when they need a run stopper there and things like that. Sean Washington, Trey Scott, in fact, told him they could see him anywhere playing from a shade nose all the way out to a 5. Like he's that versatile. This guy's 6'5", 306 pounds, and moves very well. Like his get off at the line of scrimmage is something that I would call elite. Now his top end speed, maybe not so much. He needs to work on some of that, and maybe how he sheds blocks at the point of contact, because he was able to bully guys and things like that. But the short area quickness is something that I think could allow Sean Washington to be somebody that Georgia fans really come to love.
Yeah, I think another player is Cole Spear. I mean, just what he's done with Lad McConkey and the way he's developed him into, I guess he would be a fan favorite. I mean, he was Georgia's second leading wide receiver behind Brock
in receptions. Yeah,
in receptions. So, he could come in and be one of those fan favorites as well. So, anybody that helps lead Georgia to the national championship is going to be a fan favorite. And
except Stetson Bennett.
Except Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, he's a half hated. So Jed, anybody else that sticks out to you? Maybe a guy that has not necessarily talked about the most, but you think could end up paying huge dividends for Georgia down the line.
Can I say Darris Smith again?
Yeah, feel free, man. I agree. I think Darris Smith is somebody that can't get enough praise.
Offensively, though, but I like Trent said, I think Dylan Bell, especially, Blaine, I know you've sang the praises of Dylan Bell on here several times. I think he's the guy that once he has some time in Athens, kind of grow and get a little bigger and fill out a little bit. I think he could be a guy that really turns into a productive weapon for the Bulldogs on offense. Looking forward.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Now, both of those guys that you just last mentioned, Jed, kind of lead into this. Scuffletown Dog, I promised you at the beginning you would kind of be one of the last ones here. We still have a couple more after this, but who do you think that we, University of Georgia, close with in the class of 2022? Thanks. And Scuffletown, we appreciate your question once again, as always. I think the commits, when you talk about the commits that are out there right now, that are left to sign, and then you had Darris Smith, you had Dylan Bell, and Jordan Bryant James. I think we all expect Jordan Bryant James to probably sign the Oregon Ducks, go elsewhere at the very least. So Darris Smith and Dylan Bell, expect them to both have publicly reaffirmed their commitments and say they're planning on signing. In fact, I'd even heard from sources that Darris Smith had gotten the green light to sign very late in the early signing period, but he elected himself to just wait and sign with his teammates and things along that nature. And then Trent, when it comes to the non-committed guys, the other remaining targets, you got the ones that are possible out there: Kristen Miller, Shamar Stewart, EJ Lightsey, Andrew Paul. I think all of those, what Georgia would have to feel pretty good about, except Shamar Stewart in that case.
Yeah, I think they'll finish with, looking at today, I think they'll finish with Christian Miller, Lightsey, and Andrew Paul. I think those are the three. I haven't felt good about Shamar Stewart, even when I was down in Orlando. I heard a lot of Miami talk. I heard a lot of Texas A&M talk. And still, as of today, those are the two teams that are really standing out right there.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, Jed, it just seems that Texas A&M is really finding their stride right now in recruiting. So, and how this new NIL environment and things like that. So it appears to be an Aggie and Hurricane battle down for Shamar Stewart down the line here.
Finding their stride right to the bank. But yeah, it seems like it's been A&M and Miami for Shamar for a while. I mean, Georgia has tried. They've been a factor in this recruitment, but just they haven't gotten over the top with those guys. But yeah, I mean, the other guys, Kristen Miller, we've talked about, right? The relationships with Trey Scott, Michael Williams, all those guys. I feel like they went out there. EJ Lightsey went on the official last weekend, and feels like Georgia's going to win out there. And Andrew Paul is the one I guess I'm least sure about, just because his recruitment has blown up so much in these schools like Michigan and Clemson are trying to get into. But I think when you have a school that has the tradition of Georgia at running back, you get the kid on campus for an official visit, and you implore to him, hey, we're not trying to take you as a luxury. We need you because we want to add 2 running backs in this class. And George James going elsewhere. I think Georgia wins out there. He's the one I'm least sure about. But yeah, like Trent said, I think Georgia closes on signing day with commitments from those 3 guys, and then officially signing Darris Smith and Dylan Bell as well.
And you can't ignore the fact that there's been speculation that Georgia could lose one of the running backs that's on the roster right now after the spring goes on. That's the nature of the transfer portal and things this summer. We'll see, but definitely getting a second back in this class, I think, has become, a major priority. It already was, of course, with Jordan Bryant-James being there, but for whatever reason, it appears there's a mutual parting of ways that seems to be going place there. Trent, you got something?
Yeah, I think the one thing that Texas A&M is about to fall into with signing the class they did is, you feel the heat from the fan base, especially the head coach. When you sign a class like this, it's win now.
Georgia knows all about that.
Yeah, it's not 8-4, it's not 9-3, it's win now, and the pressure just went sky high on Jimbo Fisher. While it's been, you go 10-2 or you go whatever, and you finish in the top 10, finish in the top 12. Yeah, it's a good year. But now you start landing 1 or 2 top 3 recruiting classes. It's win now, and that pressure out in Texas A&M is about to be sky high.
Especially when you beat Alabama last year with Zach Calzada. Yep. I mean, Zach Calzada could end up going on and having a great career at Auburn, but that young man had a out-of-body experience over there in College Station and was making throws that he may never make again. And when you get a quarterback like Max Johnson in there, who I think is a better quarterback than Zach Calzada, and then also you've got Connor Wigman coming in that class, you add a quarterback to a talented skill position haul that they're bringing in. When you're bringing in guys like an Evan Stewart and things like that, it gets the seat could get real hot in a hurry, like you said, Trent.
Yep, it's going to be interesting.
So DC Dog 93, the hiring of BMac impacts the recruitment the recruitment of which players the most. Obviously, I think that's receivers that's going to have to be, I think Kirby Smart and company know that they need to change a little bit how they go about recruiting the receiver position. They've been dominated at tight end, dominated at running back in recruiting, over the years. So now, receiver could help out, but how much does this impact, this hiring impact Eric Gilbert? Jed, I don't know that necessarily Brian McClendon's any different than, Cortez Hankton would have been in terms of coaching Eric Gilbert. I think Eric Gilbert's issue is, as long as he's in the right state of mind and he's healthy and he's ready to go, he can be as dominant a player as he wants to be.
Yeah, and none of us have heard anything, to suggest that Eric Gilbert's absence from the team last season was related to, dissatisfaction with the coaching staff or anything like that. I mean, maybe if you look at it from the angle of, Brian McClendon is obviously a Georgia guy through and through, like Kirby Smart, that could help Eric decide not to leave. I don't know. I mean, like you said, I don't know that it affects Eric too much, but having another guy that bleeds red and black on the staff certainly going to help. Isn't going to hurt, or I should say, with any of these guys that might be considering leaving or anything like that.
Yeah, I think if Gilbert plays anywhere, especially next year, he's going to be at the University of Georgia. Mm-hmm. And if he's playing at the University of Georgia, I think he's a guy that fills in Jermaine Burton's spot across from A.D. Mitchell, and Georgia never misses a beat. He is, he's a dynamic pass catcher. Everybody's seen that, saw that at LSU. I don't know what this last year has done to him as far as weight wise. I don't know what it's done to him. Has it? Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainties with Gilbert. I think you'll see in the spring, if Gilbert's able to go in the spring, I think you'll see more how he's going to be used. I could, depending on his weight, he could be playing wide receiver. He could be playing like a Brock Bowers position where he slid out in the slot. You don't know how he's going to be used, but I would love to see him used. You put him on the field with A.D. Mitchell and Brock Bowers, and it's just a matchup nightmare.
Yeah, I'm right there along with you guys. If in fact Eric Gilbert is where he needs to be mentally, physically, my opinion is if he plays, he will be dominant in the fall because he's that big. There's a reason Georgia went after Eric Gilbert, right? Because he's one of the better high school prospects I've ever seen play. I mean, just a like freak's not even the word. How he was able to things he's able to do, and now you add that kind of route runner, the physicality that he can bring, things like that on the perimeter, just the sheer size alone. That matchup, it was the same thing almost. It's the closest thing Georgia could bring back to a George Pickens type body, in a short time span, Trent.
Yeah, and I just keep looking. If Georgia's able to hold on, if Georgia keeps Darnell Washington on campus, having Darnell and Brock and Gilbert all in the field at the same time, along with AD, it's just I don't know. It's just pick your poison because those are four guys where you can't double team anybody because you leave somebody on an island against a Gilbert or leave somebody on an island against a Brock Bowers. It's going for 6. So it'll be interesting to see, but it all depends on the health. I guess is Gilbert ready to go? And if he is, it's a big plus for Georgia. No matter who the wide receiver coach is, I guess McClendon being there, I don't think it impacts it. But if Gilbert's able to go, he's going to be on the field, and it'll be fun to watch.
And the last thing I wanted to point out, even let's say, I guess worst case scenario for Georgia in the tight end group, let's say Darnell Washington does move on, elects to transfer to another school. Right now, indications are that he's going to stay at Georgia. But if that were to happen, it doesn't hurt to have a 6'5", 225-pound, crazy good route runner coming in Oscar Delp, who is very similar in how he plays the game to a Brock Bowers. I'm not saying he would have that kind of impact, but he's maybe not as lead of a blocker right away as Brock Bowers was able to help in the run game. But when it comes to being able to navigate through the secondary and being able to catch the ball, the great dexterity that he has, Oscar Delp is a guy who, at least catching the ball wise and route running, could be a guy who could play early as well.
Yep. Oscar Delp is very, very good. I think the one thing that Darnell brings to Georgia is almost like a 6 offensive lineman when they get into their 13 personnel, and how physical of a blocker he was. Fitzpatrick was a pretty good blocker. You lose if you was to lose those two guys, you got to fill the void, and you don't necessarily want Brock Bowers, down there blocking. You'd rather have him out catching balls. So somebody will have to fill in that spot, but it'll be good if Georgia can hold on to Darnell.
Yeah, I see a couple of things down here in the chat before we go. We always address for people, Eric, especially you, Eric, with the Oregon tag down there. We always address our guys on the UGA Sports Vault. It's just what we do first here on the show. Loyalty to those guys and appreciation for what they do for UGA Sports. But we do hit some YouTube comments down here at the end. Greg Rosenberg asks, is Lightsey really a linebacker? His speed size seems more like a star. Every indication is that, his high school coach told us that Glenn Schumann wants him as an inside linebacker. And
I would have said the same thing about Roquan Smith coming out of high school. I mean, he similar type body, but was probably coming in at 205, 210, and you develop them guys into playing inside, but he's also a guy that you could probably put in at star, especially against physical run teams, and him have success there. But he would. I see him being inside linebacker.
Yeah, they're wanting him there. So, Jed, before we go, is there what can people expect out of recruiting coverage? Between now and signing day, and then kind of the rest of this week. What we got coming up on deck?
Yeah, well, we've got Raul Aguirre's story coming tomorrow. That's why I was late to the show tonight. We're still gathering reactions from guys that are in town this weekend, and then our big signing day. I wouldn't call it a bonanza, maybe like a fiesta, maybe instead of a bonanza. With
we'll just have a few of them.
There's because for those of you who haven't read it, there's a story on Rivals about the main targets that are signing. Most of Georgia's guys are in the middle part of the day, between probably like 10 and 3 ish. And then it's time playing. Like I said, we'll have stuff coming out of that. And then, the 23 cheat sheet and leaderboard and really starting to turn the page of that 23 class, coming up after that.
No doubt. I've got an interview with RJ Johnson out of Eagles Landing Christian Academy that was there this past weekend. He's a 2023 defensive back. Georgia Kirby Smart went down and watched him play basketball, so I'll have an interview with him coming up later this week. And like I said, signing day coverage and all that kind of stuff. So for Keanu Charles Reeves, a.k.a. Trent Smallwood, and Jed May, I am Blaine Gilmer, and this has been another edition of UGA Sports Georgia Recruiting Rumors versus Fact. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and turn on notifications if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next Monday on another edition of Rumors versus Facts.